I would like to say shalom to you and to encourage and a better understanding of ourselves as a people. It's very important that we acquire that. The empowerment of a people or a person or individual is to receive what is theirs alone and none other. In other words, if you're going to empower a group of people or an individual, that individual or that group finds out what is important to them, and therefore they, as that group of people or individual, begins to cultivate it. You understand? So we want to be empowered, and how we as a people in the Western Hemisphere of North America is to be empowered is to find out what has transpired in our life to bring about circumstances that is not favorable to us. And one of the things that I like to bring to our attention is that we as a people have missed out on something that belongs to us. And when we evaluate that, what belongs to us, we can begin to, as a group of people, as a person, we can begin to move ahead and reaffirm ourselves and come into the circumstances that would be more favorable for us as a people, as a group. And I would like to bring our attention to what we miss out on. It is said in Hosea chapter 4, Yahweh says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. He says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Why is this knowledge so important? And when he said, my people are destroyed, and he told us exactly what we're destroyed from, and he says, my people. And therefore, my people being possessive, meaning that Yahweh God has said that this is his people, and his people, for reasons that they must come to light on, is that they are destroyed for a lack of what pertains to them personally. And therefore, the resurrection of these people is to reaffirm, reassert themselves in what they lost. And what they lost is their own knowledge. And therefore, if this is their knowledge, they have to learn to return back and to reclaim their knowledge so that they can have a resurrection. And therefore, they must understand this. And when we can see, it says here in Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 6, it said, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who has Elohim so nigh unto them, as Yahweh our God is in all things that we call upon him for? So my people who are destroyed for lack of knowledge was given their knowledge that if they had maintained within that, they would be a wise people. But because they no longer felt a great need for the knowledge that is personally theirs, they moved away from it. They didn't find it to be something that would be of a stability in their own existence, and therefore they moved away from it. But we have to return to reclaim our portion in this world, in this physical world. Because without it, we will never reclaim what is ours. And the thing about it is that we don't have to wrestle or ask or be mad with anybody. is ours to have. People don't realize that when they gave us the Bible, which is the book that they named, they gave us our passbook back home. But the thing is that if it's being taught in a way where you, on an individual level, have to search these things out for yourself, no matter what Bible class you go to or who you sit down with, you should be constantly alert to do as much research to see how it pertains to you on a personal level. The Bible is a personal book talking about a personal endeavor that Yahweh God has with a people. That's why he says, my people. It's not, these words are not just there for no reason. You know, there's no organization that is mentioned in this book. There's none. And therefore, you have to realize Yahweh is talking to a people. He's talking to the circumstances that pertains to a people. And therefore, because of him talking to a people, we must identify the people that he's talking about and that he's talking to, so that we can have clarity and be able to move on. And therefore we know that according to what has been written in this book, that Yahweh God is talking to the children of Israel, and he said, I am the God of Israel. He also says that they had rebelled against him. He said, I've nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. He said that Israel is his inheritance. He said that they are his people. This can be all verified in the Bible. And therefore, we're looking for a people, the history, what belongs to them, so that they can reclaim it and start their resurrection, because that's what it will be. And the resurrection that they will obtain is their own identity, dealing with the knowledge that Yahweh God gave to them on a personal level. He says here, and it's so beautiful when we come back and we read it so that we might know the truth of it. What is Yahweh God really saying? And he mentions these things, and he tells you, he said, what? I am the God of Israel. Let's go to Isaiah 1, starting at verse 2. Hear, O heaven, and give ear, O earth. For Yahweh has spoken, I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. Do you understand? He said, I have nourished and I have brought up children. And he said, hear, O heaven, and give ear, O earth, for Yahweh has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. He says, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel does not know. What he says, my people does not consider. Who are they? A sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, seed of evildoers that are corrupt. They have forsaken Yahweh. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. And he says, the ox knoweth his owner, the ass his master's crib, but Israel does not know, my people does not consider. Isaiah 1 to 2 to 4. He said these were a nation of people. It didn't say they were religion. He said these were my people. And they have forsaken their knowledge. And they've been destroyed because of their disobedience. What they must do, they must return. And this is what we're doing now. And this is what is written in the book of Deuteronomy 12. He said, it shall come to pass, when all these things will come upon thee, the blessing and the curse. See, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all nations. And when we read this book, this is our book. The book that they call the Bible is a personal history of the children of Israel and their God. How will a people re-empower themselves? By what belongs to them on a personal level. He said, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, thou shalt call them to mind among all nations, whether Yahweh thy God has driven thee, and shall return unto Yahweh thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul. That then Yahweh thy God will turn that captivity. Of course, we're the only people in the United States of America that came here and was sold on auction blocks against our will. We are the captive children of the world and have compassion. He says that then Yahweh thy God will turn that captivity when? He says, when you obey according to all that I have commanded thee this day, thou and thy children, that then Yahweh thy God will turn that captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations, whether Yahweh thy God has scattered thee. See, Yahweh scattered us. Why? Because we were disobedient, hard-knocked people, hard-necked, and we're still disobedient. But he is gathering the ones that will listen. The ones that will listen, that don't want no more parts of, as it says in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, and Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again. Again, we went into Egypt the first time, right? He said, you're going to go into Egypt again. What was Egypt? Hard bondage, servitude. But when we went into Egypt the first time, we walked down. Nobody bothered us until they began to feel a need to put forth a devious plan. And he says, and thou shalt go into Egypt again with ships. With ships. Again, that is the different description of the first Egypt where we walked. He said, you coming in here with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there shall you be sold unto your enemies for bondwomen and bondmen, and no man shall buy you. We can't buy our way out of this. We're not talking about the slaves that came here that bought. He said, you ain't gonna buy. You, who this wasn't, that was said, you would not buy your way out of this. And Yahweh gives you a description in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse, 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and want of all things. Yes, you want your freedom. You want to participate in a way. This is why you went down and built Black Wall Street. Then white people came down there out of envy and jealousy. They just didn't punish the person that they said that had performed an act that never happened against a lady by the name of Sarah Page. You understand? Dick Rowland was the African man that was accused, and he never touched her. And they murdered them people in that town. They literally took every strength in them to murder the people. The people couldn't walk in the streets without getting shot. Children was murdered. And therefore, where is it that it was ever said, who stood up and said that was in authority, give these people back what was taken from them unrighteously? No one stood up for us. No one is going to help us, because Yahweh God told you. He said they're not going to help you, and you can do whatever you want, and you can sit there all you want and you cry, because as it says, and I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you. These people hate us, and therefore they take every opportunity. Then this book that we're reading is a lie. It says here, and they shall fall one upon another. Yes, you fall one upon another. You don't come together and have a common meeting for your own salvation. It says, before a sword where none pursue it, and ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies. when they do you wrong, who's going to stand up for you? When they went down there in Black Wall Street and tore it up, ain't nobody stood up for us. And when the book came out on Black Wall Street, there was a lot of opposition that book should never be told, because you as a people, you have lived the American dream. They made sure from that day of 1921, of that riot in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, you've never rebuilt nor reestablished nor any town that you once had, that you yourself owned and built. You never was reinstated by no help of any authority, and to this day you will be a scattered and helpless people until you return back and keeping the Shabbat, until you keep these things that belongs to you. Other than that, you ain't got nobody to blame. You need to sit down and obtain what belongs to you. It has nothing to do with anybody else. When you do what Yahweh tell you to do, he will protect you. That's why he said the rod of the wicked shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous, except the righteous put their hands to iniquity. When you go back and read the stories, even when they wanted to come up, this great army to Jerusalem, up and take Jerusalem, and it was mentioned to them, he said, look, if they broke the law, we can go up and get them. But if they keep it, their God is going to fight for them. Yahweh God is waiting for us to come into harmony with obedience and keeping of the commandments. Once we do that, once we obtain to have that constant vigilance of reasserting ourselves in what belongs to us, then we can start our journey back. This doesn't take money. This has already been prescribed in this book, what we must do. And we're doing it. It said, when you will call these things to mind, now you call them to mind, now do them. You don't need to go to college, because ain't no college going to teach you that you're Israel and you're the chosen of God. Yahweh God will fight for us. We don't have to get no weapons. We don't have to threaten nobody. We don't have to appeal to anybody. Yahweh God will deal with it. What we need to do is do. And we need to be sincere about it. We don't have to protest and tell, oh, you doing us wrong. That's their job, to do us wrong. Tell us we must learn to do ourselves right. This book will tell us and guide us back to where we must go and what we must do. But at the same time, we don't take it serious. We don't take the things serious that pertains to us as a people. And therefore, because we don't take it serious, we are not able to perform nor execute those things that will set us free. Yahweh God is waiting for us. It's not hard. We need good teachers, not just to teach, but to live, so that we might start our journey back home. Yahweh God, he has given us the circumstances that we will endure, but he has promised to help us through it. The time is ripened that those that will set their hand on us, our suffering is over. But if it's not being taught, then we're going to wither away, and we're not going to have anybody stand up for us to help us if we don't do these things for ourselves. So we must say these prayers in earnestness, say these prayers and ask Yahweh to help us, because we need help. And therefore he will help us. He has never gone back on his word, but we have double-crossed our God. Now, let us return and keep out of harm's way by keeping the commandments that pertains to us as a people, a personal thing. Ain't nobody have to help us. We can help ourselves. And they all know who we are, but we have to know who we are. And we have to set this in order so that our children will have something. What are we going to leave our children? What do we have for our children? For those that will stay and listen, the salvation is in the words of Yahweh God. He says, Seek ye out of the book of Yahweh and read. Not one of these shall fail, none shall want or make. For my mouth it has commanded, and his spirit it has gathered them. So Yahweh said, this is the book of Yah. And this is Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16. He says, seek ye out of the book and read, for none of it shall fail. It's not going to fail. But we who stumble at the circumstances of this world, thinking that people are going to help us. Nobody is going to help us. Because we know the name of Yahweh God, and we should call upon him. He should make all of these things ready for us so that we may overcome the strife and the disappointments that we have. What are the disappointments? For not keeping the commandments of Yah. And therefore, this is what we need to do. We need to return. We need to humble ourselves to him and begin to return back and do that which is acceptable, that which is right. And Yahweh God will what? Reinstate us. Because we can only be reinstated by one way, and that is to keep the commandments of Yahweh God. Other than that, we can sit, we can do anything we want, believing with tattoos and that we can have all these piercings, and that's not going to save us. What's going to save us? And this is why we must understand and work out our own salvation. That is important to us. Work out your own salvation. Work it out. Sit down and read this book. Don't put it on your shelf. Read it. We all came here to live, and we all came here to die. And we will leave this earth. But we don't have to leave the way we came. We came not knowing who we are. We don't have to leave not knowing who we are. And this is the precious things of this world that we want to be able to say to our children and give to them and tell them that this is your God and he has given you this so that you might what? Learn to humble yourself. It says here in Hosea 8, I have written to them the great things of my Torah, but they have counted as a strange thing. Do you see? He gave us the great things of his writing. I have written to him the great things of my law, Torah, but they were counted as a strange thing. This is your life. This is not like anybody else. You're the only people that made a covenant with Yahweh God. And he's going to hold you to that covenant, that agreement. That's why that's Hosea 8, verse 12. I have written to him the great things of my Torah, but they were counted as a strange thing. So we don't have any other hope, no other way. We must return. And may Yahweh continue to bless us. We have a great future coming because Yahweh God has turned away the circumstances by which it once was is not going to be the same way. Yahweh God has called us to back in peace. And I would like to read this again, where people say Israel is not coming back. That's not true. Behold, the day cometh, said Yahweh, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of men and with the seed of beasts. And it shall come to pass that like I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down and to throw down and to destroy and to afflict, so will I watch over them to build and to plant, said Yahweh. In those days they shall say no more, the father has eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. But every one shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth of the sour grapes, his teeth shall be set on edge. Behold, the day cometh, said Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband unto them, said Yahweh. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, said Yahweh, I will put my Torah in their inner parts, and write it upon their hearts, and will what? Be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, said Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. May Yahweh bless us. And Yahweh God has kept his promise. He has kept his promise that he has promised us. And the oath that he made with our ancestors, he has kept everything. He has not gone back. He has given us. We should be proud to have a God like that. We should love him with all our mind, body, and might, because he has not turned away. What he says this, but with him that standeth here with us this day before Yahweh our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. This was the oath. He says, neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before Yahweh our God, and also with him that is not with us this day. Yahweh made an oath with us. He made a promise to us. And we should be happy that our God, who is God, that he has kept his word, because we can't make him do anything. I want to say, may Yahweh bless you. May the Spirit engross you in the Ruach to call upon Yahweh, to live in his way, and to serve him. And be thankful that he is a God that has kept and has delivered his people. We have read that Yahweh will make a new covenant with us. That was Jeremiah 31. We started from 27 to 34. May Yahweh bless you and keep you forever and ever. Amanah.